So I've just downloaded the mapping IDE. Once you've downloaded it, extract the file. You can download the file from timeruns.net under the Downloads tab, and then at the bottom of the page. Players.zip is a file that I'll upload to the forums, and I'll explain what it does later. Once it's extracted, open the file, the folder. Inside the folder, you'll find a readme.txt. If you open that, that contains the instructions on how to configure the install. So I'm just going to run through those. Don't have to do this step. I'm just doing it so I can run enemy territory in a window. Type in a name, select a resolution, select your connection, enable Punkbuster, and then hit create. Once that's done, let's close down enemy territory and fire up Radiant. The first time you fire up Radiant, you'll see this layout. This is the one Fate uses, I believe. I won't be using this one, but you can use this one if you want. Here's the top view, the front view, side view, and the 3D view. To bring up the texture view, you hit T. But anyway, to change it to my view, hit P for preferences, go to layout, select the first one, and then hit OK. In order for these changes to take effect, we need to reboot Radiant. Just going to resize the windows so they're better to use. At the bottom, you have the console view. Here, all the errors are displayed. On the left-hand side, you have the grid view. On the right top, you have the 3D view, and on the right bottom, you have the texture view. So let's start creating our map. In order to create a map, you drag brushes, or you create brushes. Brushes are the building blocks of all maps. In order to create a brush, left-click and drag your mouse in the grid view. If you want to resize it, click outside the brush, left-click, and then drag. Or you can drag two sides at the same time if you want. In order to move it, you click inside the brush and then just drag it wherever you want it to be. In order to move the 2D view, right-click and then drag. And you can also scroll in and scroll out to zoom the camera or to zoom the grid. In order to change the grid size, because at the moment we've got the 8 grid, so that means it's you can't make a brush smaller than 8. At the top you can change it to 1, then the grid is a lot finer, or 9, then it's very big, then I can't make a brush that's smaller than 256. I wouldn't go lower than grid 1, because otherwise it becomes very hard to line up brushes. In order to select a brush, I'm going to change it to grid 4 by hitting the hotkey 4. In order to select a brush, hit shift and then left click the brushes you want to select in the 2D or in the 3D view. And if you want to delete them, hit backspace. In order to move around in the 3D view, right click and then you get a little crosshair, and then with the arrow keys you can just move it around really easily. So let's now change the view, the grid view, to the side view. In order to cycle through the 3 different views, hit Control Tab or hit the button at the top, XYZ. They both do the same thing. So let's start making a room. I'm just going to make this one a little bit bigger. This is going to be the floor. I always try and match it up to the thicker lines on the grid, so it's easier. In order to rotate or flip the brush, at the top you have some buttons you can use. You can try those out. In order to deselect multiple brushes, just hit Escape. If you want to deselect one, you can just shift click it again. just duplicate the floor, put it on top. There we go, now we have a room. So now we need a place to spawn. In order to do that, I'm just going to import the file. I'll show you the players.zip file. If you open that, inside is a players.map. Let's put that into et main maps. That's where all the files are saved. Once that's done, we can import it into our current map. So go to File, Import, and then hit players.map, and then hit OK. Now you can see we have the entities inside our room, or one of them's inside a wall, so let's just move them over so they're inside the room. They have to be inside your room. If they're outside the room, the map won't compile. You'll get a map leak. I'm going to put them 8 units above the ground so that you're definitely not stuck in the ground when you spawn. Here we have the allied spawn, axis spawn, spectator spawn, allied flag map icon. So on the limbo screen you see the allied flag icon and then the axis flag icon. This little one in the middle is to tie your map to your script file. You need maximum 1 in your map, so if you just import that, then you've got no more worries. Once that's done, let's apply some textures. So I'm just going to select all the brushes and first apply them with Calc. We can do this in 2 ways. One way is just by hitting this button, and they're all done. Everything's got Calc on it. Or you can go to Textures, Common, and then apply it that way. Both do the same thing. Calc is a texture you use by default because faces you don't want to display have to have Calc on them to save you frames per second. Now the inside walls, we do want to have a texture on those, so I'm going to apply a texture. In order to select one face and not the whole thing, you hold down Control Shift Alt and then left click it. Now you see we've only selected this and not the whole thing. So now when we apply a texture, it will be on one side of the brush instead of the whole thing. Another way of applying textures is by middle mouse, is holding down middle mouse button on the texture you want, or selecting it in the texture viewer. And then hold down Control and Shift and then middle mouse button where you want to put it down. This is the fastest way to texture things, I think. Now let's apply a floor texture. And for the roof, I'm going to put a skybox on there. So because skyboxes give light and they give the feeling that you're in a 3D world. I'm going to apply SD Siwa Sky, that's the one that they use in Siwa Oasis. Now that that's done, we can compile the map and try it out. So first let's save it. Save as second room dot map. Don't forget the dot map at the end, otherwise the map won't compile. Now that it's saved, go to BSP and then you have multiple compile options. For now, we're just going to take the first one. That one just basically turns the map file into a BSP file with the brushes in it. To run the map, we're going to use MS.exe, but first let's set up our hotkey. So open up the mscfg.ini in any text editor, and then after the hotkey, set up the hotkey you want to restart the map. So I'm going to use F7 because I never use that button. Once that's done, fire up ms.exe, then you can select the mod you want to run and the map you want to play. Once that's done, hit start. Here you can see we're inside our map that we just made. I can join a team. And I can test out the map. I can use air control so you can see we're running ET run. If I want to make a change to the map, I hit Alt-Z, which is ET Minimizer. I already had it running. If you didn't have it running, you have to fire up etmin.exe before you run the map. So I just minimized it now. I'm going to make a change in gradient. So I'm drawing a new brush. Now you can see that I've got the skybox texture on my wall, which I don't want. It did this because I still had it selected in the texture viewer. So I'm going to change it over to Cog. And then by middle mouse clicking the wall, I'm going to apply the wall texture to the various faces. Now that's done, I have to recompile the map again. So the changes will be converted into the BSP file. I'm just going to hit the first one. The other compile options you have here are for light and for vis. Light is so that you get shadows and that all your lights work in your map. And the vis is to improve your frames per second if you have a larger map. But I'll explain that another time, it's quite complicated. You can also do multiple stages at the same time by picking one of these later compile options. So for now, I'll do a light compile as well. Once that's done, at the bottom, when it's done, it'll say disconnected. Hit F7, which will restart our map in enemy territory, and then hit Alt-Z to maximize enemy territory, and we can check out our changes. As you can see, we now have shadows thanks to the light compile, and the new brush that we added has also been added to the map. The shadows are very jagged because we did a light, faster compile. That's it for the first tutorial.